He tossed a key I never gave him onto my dining table. The brass edge flashed under the chandelier, and the click sounded like a gavel. My younger brother sat back with a lazy smile, as if the house I loved had already changed hands. My parents watched him with the calm of people who believe a decision has been made. I held my breath and counted the seconds until the room felt steady again. I am Natalie Carter. I am 32 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I work in real estate. I built my career one closing at a time while learning how homes are valued and how deeds and titles protect what matters. The only steady love in my childhood came from my grandparents, Rose and Walter. They left me their craftsman in Irvington. I spent 3 years restoring it. I scraped paint from the cabinets Walter built. I followed Rose's notes to replant her roses in careful lines. That house became my proof that effort and love can live in the same walls. The imbalance in my family is not new. When I needed a calculator for advanced math, I was told to babysit. When my brother turned 16, he got a car. When my college fund went missing, I learned it was used to rescue one of his ventures. I worked 30 hours a week through school. I graduated with a strong GPA and a stronger spine. My parents called me too independent, like it was a flaw. I learned to let the words slide off and keep moving. Now the key on my table was more than metal. It was entitlement made solid. I looked at my brother and thought about the workshop, where Walter taught me how to repair and restore. I thought about the porch swing, where Rose told stories until the sun went down. My brother spoke in a cheerful tone about paint and appliances and a gym where the workshop stands. My parents said it is a family house, so it should serve the family. I heard the message under the words. Give it up. Be good. Make it easy. I took a slow sip of wine to hide the heat in my chest. I let my voice stay even. I asked where he got the key. He said, neighbors can be helpful when you tell them you are family. I nodded and said nothing, because I was not only holding the deed, I was holding the end of a pattern that has drained me for years. A week earlier, I accepted an all-cash offer that came in over asking. The buyers walked through and traced their hands along the bookcases Walter made. They asked about the roses. They asked about the swing. They sent earnest money the same day. Escrow opened. Their kids are already enrolled in the local school. The file sits in my bag with every page tabbed and signed. The ink is dry. The timeline is set. What my brother thinks he is taking is already beyond his reach. I could have shouted the truth in that moment. I could have thrown the key back across the table. I did not. I let the silence work. I let the weight of my calm do the talking. I looked at my parents and saw the familiar calculation. I looked at my brother and saw a boy who never learned that no is a complete sentence. The key lay between us like a dare. I straightened my napkin. I fixed the place setting. I felt my heart beat slow until it matched the tick of the clock. I was ready. My brother's key still sat in his pocket, but the memory of it lay heavy on my table. I tried to breathe slow, but it carried me back to every time my family had set me aside. When Evan wanted new gear for soccer, money appeared. When I needed supplies for school, I was told to babysit. At 16, he was handed a car. I rode buses until I saved for a Honda that already had 100,000 miles. Mom said Evan needed more support. Dad said I should not compete. Their words carved grooves deeper than the swing on Walter's porch. Grandma Rose saw it all. One night when I was 17, I sat at her kitchen table with tears burning my cheeks. I had just been told, There was no money for my senior trip. Hours earlier, my parents had bought Evan a gaming console. Rose slid a plate of cookies toward me and said, "You have grit, Natalie. Grit will take you farther than gifts." Walter was blunt. "You are twice the person your brother is. Remember that." That grit carried me through college when I discovered my fund had been drained for Evan's failed memorabilia store. I worked 30 hours a week, still graduated near the top of my class. I left school with loans and scars, but also with a backbone that stiffened whenever someone tried to take what I earned. And yet, even after all that, I wanted peace. I wanted to believe blood could still mean family. That was why I hosted this dinner. That was why I lit candles and cooked lasagna from scratch, as if food could fill the cracks. As we ate, the questions began. Mom leaned close. Is the office still set up in the extra bedroom? Evan could use a workspace. Dad asked about square footage. He said property values were climbing in that neighborhood. Evan smirked. You could rent it for a killing. Each question alone sounded casual. Together, they formed a noose. I tried to steer the talk. I asked about Aunt Lydia's surgery. I asked Dad about his work. But the circle always came back to the house I had bled into, the house I had painted with my own hands. Evan lounged in his chair like a king waiting for his crown. He bragged about his newest consulting business. He said the investors just did not see his vision. He whined about his roommate moving out, about the timing being terrible. Mom patted his hand and said, "When one door closes, another opens." Then she shot a look at Dad, the kind of look that carries a plan. I saw the pattern forming, and my pulse picked up. I excused myself to take a call from my colleague. Laura confirmed the Patterson closing for next Tuesday. Her cheerful tone steadied me. She thought she was giving me good business news. She did not know she was also handing me ammunition. When I returned, the table was too quiet. 3 pairs of eyes followed me back to my seat. Dad checked his watch. Mom rearranged pillows that did not need arranging. Evan's grin widened, as if the next act had been rehearsed. "This is cozy," Mom said, glancing around my apartment, "but it must feel small compared to the house." I set down my fork. My pulse slowed again. The trap was opening, and they thought I was walking in blind. "Speaking of the house," Evan said, voice smooth with anticipation, "I've been thinking about paint colors for the living room." The words hung between us. The lasagna was cooling, but the air felt hot. Evan leaned forward in his chair, elbows spread wide as if the apartment was already his. "I'm thinking a dark blue for the living room," he said, eyes bright with excitement. "Something bold to cover those old walls." I froze with my coffee halfway to my lips. Why would he be thinking about paint colors for my house? My house. The one Rose and Walter had trusted me to protect. The silence after his words felt like a vacuum pulling the air from the room. Mom cleared her throat in that way she always did, before dropping a verdict. "Well, Natalie, we've been discussing the family situation, and we've come to a decision that makes sense for everyone." My skin prickled. "What decision?" I asked slowly. Evan sat up straighter, a grin stretching across his face. "Mom and Dad have decided I'm moving into your house." He emphasized your, as if it was a technicality soon to be erased. "It just makes sense. I need a stable living situation after this business setback, and you're doing fine with your real estate thing." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, but his smirk never wavered. My parents looked at me with expectant eyes. They thought this was settled. They thought my silence was consent. Dad's voice took on his firm insurance manager tone. "Try to see the bigger picture, Natalie." "Jake, sorry, Evan, needs a fresh start. That house is too big for one person anyway. Mom added smoothly, your grandparents would want it to benefit the whole family. Benefit the family. Their favorite phrase when they wanted me to give something up. Evan leaned back again, already planning. I'll move in next weekend. I'll take the master bedroom, of course. The smaller room can be a gym. The office will be perfect for my new business. I set my cup down slowly, careful not to let it rattle against the saucer. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed calm. Years of conditioning had taught me to keep it neutral, even when I wanted to scream. And where exactly am I supposed to live in this scenario? I asked. Mom waved her hand like it was nothing. You're doing well. You can find another apartment, or you could always move back into your old room at our house until you figure something out. The casual dismissal hit harder than a slap. They were asking me to surrender my legal property, the home I had restored, and move back into the bedroom I left at 18. I forced my voice to stay even. So let me get this straight. You want me to hand over the house Rose and Walter left to me in their will, the house I've spent 3 years in my own savings renovating, so Evan can have a fresh start after another failure? Dad corrected me, as if the distinction mattered. Not hand over, share. Family helps family. You've always been so independent, but Evan needs support right now. The word selfish hovered in the air, unspoken but familiar. I had heard it 1,000 times. Selfish when I asked for recognition. Selfish when I wanted even a fraction of what had been handed to him. Evan leaned closer, his voice low, persuasive. Sis, I know you're attached, but I'll take good care of it. You can visit whenever you want, maybe Sunday dinners. Visit my own home. And then, like clockwork, my phone buzzed. One message after another. Cousins and aunt. Why are you being so difficult about helping Evan? Family should come first. Disappointed in you. I looked up at my mother. Did you tell everyone about this before talking to me? Her eyes flickered with guilt. I may have mentioned it. Only to a few people. Evan smiled wider, mistaking my silence for surrender. He didn't know that silence was the sound of a storm gathering. The lasagna dish sat cold in the center of the table. The air felt heavy, charged, as if every word was a match waiting to strike. My father shifted in his chair, eyes sharp. My mother smoothed the couch pillows again and again, like nervous hands could erase the tension. Evan sprawled across the armchair, confident, smug, ready to play king in a house he did not own. When one of us struggles, the others step in, Dad said firmly. That's how family survives. I studied their faces. 3 against 1. A chorus of entitlement rehearsed long before this night. My jaw ached from holding back the words I wanted to scream. Family survives when people carry their own weight, I thought, but I bit my tongue. Let me ask you something. When does helping family stop being love and start being chains? Evan leaned forward, his grin wide enough to show he thought the game was won. I've already started planning the renovations. The kitchen needs to be gutted. Those old cabinets? Outside. I want sleek steel, marble counters, smart appliances. The garden can go too. I'll extend the patio, maybe add a hot tub. More practical than flowers. His words struck me like blows. Those cabinets were Walter's work. That garden was Rose's life. Every petal in those rows carried her touch. And now he wanted to tear it apart, like it was nothing but weeds. Mom nodded as though he were an artist describing a masterpiece. The house will finally reach its full potential with Evan in it. He has vision. I looked at her, then at Dad, then at Evan. For 32 years, I had carried their dismissal like a second skin. But tonight, I felt the seam split. Interesting vision, I said evenly. But what makes you think you can make those decisions? Because it's a family house, Dad snapped. And your independence blinds you to that. You have always made choices as if no one else matters. There it was, the wordless accusation given voice again. Selfish, cold, independent. Evan leaned closer, lowering his tone. Sis, you can't stop this. The neighbors already think I live there. I've been over a few times, taking measurements. Something inside me stilled. I had known. My Ring camera had caught him with a contractor at the side door. I had saved the clips, tucked them in the red folder, waiting by the dining table. I had let him talk, let him expose his arrogance. You've been inside my house? I asked, my voice low. Not your house, he corrected, smile sharp. Our house. The sooner you accept that, the smoother this will be. The rage that swelled in me tasted like iron. I remembered Rose's voice the week before she passed, pressing my hand. Don't let them take advantage anymore. Some people only understand walls, Natalie. Build them strong. I set down my fork, folded my napkin slowly, deliberately, and stood. We're not finished here, I said. Evan laughed. Then let's wrap it up fast. I need the keys. Tonight. My father nodded in agreement. It's efficient. Better to start the transition now. I felt the calm slide over me like armor. They thought I was cornered. They thought silence meant surrender. But silence was the sound of my plan taking shape. Everyone back to the dining table, I said. What for? Evan asked, impatient. Just hand over the keys. The table, I repeated, my tone sharper, steadier. Something in my voice made even my father pause. One by one, they followed me back. Confusion on their faces, anticipation in Evan's stride. The red folder waited at the head of the table. And tonight, it was going to open. We sat again at the dining table. The lasagna pan sat half empty between us. Now, nothing more than a prop on a stage. My parents settled across from me, tight smiles hiding tension. Evan lounged like a man waiting for his coronation. He drummed his fingers on the wood. All right, Natalie, let's make this easy. Give me the keys tonight. I'll start moving in this weekend. Mom nodded quickly. Your father and I can help you pack. You can move essentials to your apartment. The rest can stay for Evan. It will be simpler. Simpler. That word rang like an insult. For them, simpler meant sacrificing me again. For them, simpler always meant Evan winning. My father cleared his throat. And about the mortgage payments. We think it's only fair you continue covering those until Evan gets on his feet. Once his new business turns a profit, you two can work something out. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. You want me to give up my house, let Evan live there, furnish it with my things, and still pay the mortgage? Family helps family, Dad replied firmly. Evan leaned closer, a mock look of sympathy on his face. It's not like you'll be left with nothing. You've got your apartment. You've got your job. You'll be fine. Fine. The word felt like gasoline on open flame. I folded my hands in front of me, forcing them not to shake. Before I could speak, the sound of knuckles rapping against wood jolted the room. A knock at my apartment door. Everyone froze. I rose, crossed the room, and opened it. 2 men in suits stood outside, each holding an envelope. Natalie Carter? One asked. Yes. Service of documents. They handed me the envelopes, nodded, and left without another word. I walked back to the table and placed the envelopes in front of my parents and my brother. What is this? Dad asked, his voice sharp. Cease and desist letters, I replied evenly, directed to certain relatives who have been spreading lies about me. Harassment, defamation, interference with my business. These are legal warnings. The next step is court. Evan barked out a laugh, but it cracked in the middle. You're threatening us. No, I said, calm as stone. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Mom's lips tightened. This is unnecessary, Natalie. You're escalating things. No, I repeated. This situation was escalated the moment you tried to claim my property as your own. Evan slammed his palm on the table. Enough games. I need those keys tonight. I let the silence stretch until the sound of the clock filled the room. Then, I reached for the red folder I had placed earlier. I slid it onto the table, the leather edges smooth under my hands. Evan's eyes narrowed. What's that? Proof, I said simply. My father leaned forward, suspicious. Proof of what? I held the folder closed, letting the tension grow. That this house is not yours to take. That it never was. Evan scoffed. You can wave papers around all you want, but the truth is, everyone agrees it's a family house. And family decided. I met his stare, unflinching. Family doesn't decide ownership. Law does. His smirk faltered for the first time that night. Open it, he challenged, voice tight. I placed my palm flat on the cover, holding it in place. Not yet. The room was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. My parents exchanged nervous glances. Evan leaned forward, waiting to see inside, and I knew the next words I spoke would change everything. The red folder lay between us like a live wire. Evan's fingers twitched as if he might snatch it, but he didn't dare. My parents leaned forward, eyes narrowed, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. I opened the folder with deliberate calm. Each snap of the clasp, louder than words. Inside were crisp stacks of paper, deed copies, escrow instructions, receipts for earnest money, a letter from the title company. I spread them across the table, like a dealer laying out cards in a game. None of them realized I had already won. I sold the house last week, I said. The words cut through the silence, sharper than any knife. For a moment, no one moved. Then, my mother's face drained of color. My father's jaw tightened. Evan's smirk cracked wide open into disbelief. You what? He sputtered. I sold it. The buyers are a young family with 3 kids. They love the garden, the built-in shelves, the swing Walter hung from the oak tree. Closing is Tuesday. The price was $850,000. Mom's hand shook as she grabbed one of the contracts. She rifled through the pages, her lips trembling. This can't be legal. You can't just sell a family home without consulting us. I folded my hands, my voice steady. Actually, I can. The house was left to me, not to the family. I'm the sole owner of record. I've paid every mortgage payment, every tax bill, every insurance premium. I've done every renovation. It's mine to sell, and I sold it. Evan's face flushed deep red. You knew I needed that house. You knew I was planning my next business. How could you betray me like this? I leaned forward, meeting his fury with calm. When did you ever tell me that, Evan? You told Mom and Dad, but never me. And even if you had, your plans don't create obligations for me. Not anymore. My father seized another document, scanning it with the practiced eye he once used on insurance claims. His lips pressed tight. There must be a way to stop this. The sale can't be final yet. It's not final until closing, I said. But any attempt to interfere now would trigger penalties. The buyers have already moved forward. Their kids are registered at the local school. They've given notice at their current home, and earnest money has changed hands. Canceling would cost tens of thousands. Are you prepared to write that check? Mom's silence was answer enough. There was never money when it came to helping me. Only when it came to Evan. Evan shoved his chair back so hard it scraped the floor. You tricked them. You manipulated Rose and Walter when they were old. That's the only reason they left it to you." My chest tightened, but I held my ground. They left it to me because I was there. I cared for them every day. I respected them. You showed up only when you needed something. He slammed his fist on the table, dishes rattling. "This isn't over. I'll contest the will." "Good luck," I replied evenly. "It's been 3 years. The will was properly executed, witnessed by their lawyer, doctor, and friends. No court will touch your claim." His fury twisted into something colder. He leaned across the table, eyes blazing. "Then I'll ruin you another way. Everyone will know what you did. Every relative, every friend. You'll be the selfish one, not me." My phone buzzed as if on cue. Dozens of new messages lit the screen. Cousins, aunts, their words already judging me without hearing my side. I set the phone face down and looked straight at him. "The truth will come out. It always does." Evan's smile returned, smaller now, sharper. Then, "You'd better be ready for war." The word war still echoed in my ears long after the door slammed behind them. My apartment felt hollow, filled only with the faint hum of the refrigerator and the cooling scent of lasagna I could no longer stomach. Evan's threat was not idle. By morning, my phone was a battlefield. Cousins sent messages dripping with judgment. "Family should come first. How could you do this to your brother?" Aunts posted vague quotes on social media about betrayal. Uncles called, their voices full of disappointment, though none of them had ever lifted a hand to help me before. The smear campaign Evan promised was in full swing, but I had prepared for this. I crafted a single, steady response. My grandparents left me their home. After 3 years of ownership and renovation, I chose to sell it to a family who will love it as much as they did. The proceeds are invested in my future. I will not debate this over text or social media. Then I copied and pasted it, sending it to anyone who asked. No more explanations. No more begging for understanding. Still, the pressure wore at me. One night, Evan appeared unannounced, pounding on my door until the neighbors peeked through blinds. I opened it, braced for a fight. "I lost my apartment," he said bluntly, pushing past me without waiting for permission. He paced my living room like a caged animal. "Brian moved out earlier than planned. I can't afford the rent alone. I need a place to stay. Just for a while. You have a spare room. It's perfect." I stared at him, the audacity stealing my breath. "No, Evan, that's not going to happen." His head snapped toward me. "Why not? You have space. You have money. You're choosing to let your own brother suffer." "Because I don't want to live with you," I said simply. "And because this pattern ends here. I'm not your safety net." His face twisted. The boy who always got what he wanted, unable to process the word no. "You really are selfish," he spat. "Someday you'll need family, and we won't be there." The words hit harder than I wanted to admit, but they also clarified everything. My family had rarely been there for me in any real way. Their absence had already been my reality. Weeks passed. I focused on my brokerage, the new business I was building with 2 colleagues. Every closing, every handshake with a first-time buyer, every set of keys I passed across a table reminded me of the inheritance Rose and Walter had truly given me. Not the house, but the grit to carve out a life on my own terms. And then something unexpected happened. My father called one evening, his voice softer than I remembered. "Vanessa, sorry, Natalie. I've been thinking about how we treated you compared to Evan. It wasn't fair. We put too much on you and too little on him. I see that now. I gripped the phone tighter, the admission more valuable than gold. Thank you for saying that, Dad. It means more than you know. He sighed. Evan's back living with us. This time he's paying rent, helping with chores. He hates it, but it's time he learned. It was a small step, but an important one. For once, responsibility was being demanded of Evan instead of stripped from me. A week later, Mom appeared at my new bungalow, a box in her hands. She set it on my kitchen table and slid it toward me. Inside lay Walter's old tools, the ones she once dismissed as clutter. I think these belong with you, she said quietly. For the first time in years, I saw not condescension, but something close to humility in her eyes. I touched the worn handles, feeling the weight of memory. Thank you, Mom, I whispered. She nodded, awkward, uncertain, but it was a beginning. 48 hours remained until closing, and nothing, absolutely nothing, could stop it now. 2 days later, the closing went through without a hitch. I signed the final stack of documents, and the house that had once been Rose and Walter's officially passed into new hands. When I stepped outside the title office, a breeze carried the scent of early roses from a nearby florist. I took it as a sign. A week later, the Pattersons invited me to visit. They wanted me to see what they were doing with the place. I almost declined. Part of me feared the sight of strangers in those rooms would break me, but curiosity pushed me to drive down that familiar street. The house looked both the same and different. The red door gleamed with fresh paint, something Grandma had always dreamed of. The roses I had replanted bloomed along the fence line. Children's laughter spilled from the backyard. For the first time, I didn't feel like something was stolen. I felt like something was alive. Inside, Mrs. Patterson showed me the kitchen. My grandfather's cabinets were still there, painted a cheerful yellow. In the workshop, Mr. Patterson had lined up tools for his hobby of restoring old books. The space Walter built had purpose again. Out back, 3 children ran across the lawn, their shouts echoing against the fence. Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't tears of loss. They were gratitude. Gratitude that the legacy I fought to protect was being honored in a way my brother never could. Gratitude that I had chosen boundaries instead of surrender. I drove back to my new bungalow later that evening. My home was smaller, humbler, but it was mine. I planted cuttings from Rose's roses in the garden. I hung family photos on the walls. And I filled the dining room with laughter from friends and colleagues, the chosen family who respected me for who I was. My relationship with my parents remained complicated. Old habits didn't vanish overnight, but change had begun. My father continued to insist Evan contribute at home. My mother, slower to bend, sometimes softened in moments when she thought I wasn't looking. Evan still carried resentment, still tested boundaries, but for the first time in his life, consequences followed his choices. Looking back, I realized the house had been a gift, but not the true inheritance. What Rose and Walter really left me was strength. Strength to say no. Strength to stand alone. Strength to choose respect over obligation. Life teaches us that family isn't just about blood. It's about love, freely given, not demanded. It's about respect that doesn't come with conditions. Sometimes, the bravest act of love is building walls where none existed before. Not to shut people out, but to keep yourself whole. I know now that forgiveness doesn't mean surrender. It means letting go of hate, refusing to carry bitterness, and moving forward lighter. Rose told me once that kindness is beautiful, but without boundaries, it breaks you. She was right. So here's the lesson I carry forward, the one I want you to remember. Protect what matters, but never let it chain you. Forgive those who wrong you, but don't let them keep hurting you. And above all, choose to love, not with blind loyalty, but with eyes open, heart steady, and courage strong enough to say no when you need to. Because in the end, the most powerful inheritance any of us can claim is the freedom to live a life that honors love, respect, and peace